Awesome. So, I mean, you kind of left off nicely with that kind of introduction to kind of your early days and through college. Um, when was the first time you heard about additive manufacturing?
So the first time I heard about additive manufacturing was actually during my senior year of college. So at this time, of course, I was kind of wrapping up my political science bachelor's degree, and my exposure to the technology wasn't even on campus either. It was actually more so online. One of the more popular ways of gaining exposure to 3D printing, which was something revolving around a firearm and a component and regulation and such. And I was like, that's a little crazy, but I was still taken away by the idea of creating a three-dimensional item from, at the time I didn't even realize it came from a file or a 3D model. My at this point, this is my initial exposure, and I'm just like, wow, they're creating 3D objects from an idea, and I thought that was really cool. It came full circle about, I'm going to say, maybe a year after I got out of college and graduated. One of my mentors from JROTC in high school, a really close friend to this day, is like my big brother. We're family. Alex Bencomo. So he worked at Centavia in its very early years. He was probably one of their first hires when they started to scale up the company and kind of transition from this startup to scale up phase. And he kept telling me, he's like, "Hey man, I'm working for this cool company. We're 3D printing. Have you heard of it?" I'm like, "I have. That's so cool." And he's like, "Yeah, we're 3D printing metal parts for airplanes and satellites." And I'm like, "They can 3D print metal? That's so cool." So, really typical dialogue, but he told me very from the first time he brought it up, he's like, "I might have a good opportunity to get you in here." And at the time, being how close Alex and I are, he knew I was trying to find myself, right? At the time, I was still teaching kids and adults how to swim. I was spending, a couple nights DJing bars and clubs, throwing events from time to time. Having fun, being very fulfilled, doing what I was doing, but definitely not what I had in mind for life after college. So he had planted the seed very early on, within the first year I graduated college, and that was in 2014. And fast forward to October 9th, 2017. I woke up, laced on steel toe boots, put on a collared shirt, and went to my first day of work at Centavia. Kind of fast forward a little bit. So having my first introduction to 3D printing in 2014, and you know my exposure to it, it was so small, right? I saw 3D printing in just like a little article, small video kind of highlighting some stuff, and super small exposure, but it always resonated with me the first time I saw 3D printing. And I still look back to this day, and 3 years later, I would have never had an idea, but 3 years later, I found myself kind of, on the diving board of my career, like of my professional life, getting ready to start what I didn't know at the time, but what feels like today, the first day of the rest of my life, essentially, in regards to additive manufacturing. And since then, I'll be celebrating 5 years in additive manufacturing this October, which would be exactly 5 years from the first day I put steel toe boots on and went to go work on the shop floor.
Awesome.